Okay, we're going to start our next group of reviews with Vicky's work. She did her service learning at the Somali Bantu Kindergarten, and we've got her artist statement up here. Again, in many ways, just very straightforward, descriptive. Appreciate that you've taken the time to give us names, and you know, it always helps, I think, when we have titles to things. Not only does it maybe connect us a little bit more to what the photographer's intent was in the photograph, but it also, for me, I think, adds a little bit of an air of seriousness in terms of the fact that the photographer is thinking more in depth about the image and especially how it's going to be perceived by the viewer. Again, probably a bit of criticism that I give almost everybody is that I just like to see the artist statement just be a little bit more poetic and a lot less obvious and straightforward descriptive. But also, I recognize that these are probably the first time you've ever done artist statements, so uh, take some practice. So keep at it. So let's take a look at the images. So for me, what really resonates throughout all of your images is the way you use color. I mean, this image just really jumps off the page to me, and I think it's really the use of that red in there, and especially the red contrasted against the blue, which just really draws our eye into the photograph entirely. I love the fact that the teacher and the students seem very relaxed and comfortable with your presence there. It almost doesn't feel like there's really a camera present, that you're just kind of peering in on this little intimate moment between the student and teacher. So really beautiful shot there. Looks like you don't really have an order to these, so I'm just gonna click through everything. Again, image has just really beautiful color to it. I'm really drawn in by the warms of the gold and the red in the two teachers or the two women's sweaters. I would say that your shutter setting does look a little bit slow to me here. I think that blur of her left hand in the cup where it looks like she's mixing things or putting things in there is a little bit less than ideal. I wish we had some camera data to look at here and talk about what those shutter settings were. I don't know why that didn't get embedded in there, but nevertheless, I think that a little bit faster shutter setting would have been appropriate here. If you were at a 30th of a second, maybe a thousandth of, or I'm sorry, a 60th of a second, or 1/125th of a second would have helped freeze that action up just a little bit. And then just a really interesting graphic element. Looks like a honeycomb here, which has got some pretty neat patterns to it. And that's when we're doing a body of work like this and multiple images, it's nice to have some wide shots, some medium shots, and then some tight close-up detail shots. In the old days, we used to have a very classic photographic magazine called Life magazine, and there was a Life magazine formula for these essays, and in that formula it always talked about sort of having a wider establishing shot, then sort of a medium interaction shot, and then a close-up detail shot. So I think sort of in these last three shots here, you pretty much captured the essence of that Life magazine formula. And again, another really neat shot with some beautiful colors going on in there. Looks like you may have overlaid here with a layer. I'm just trying to, or whether you were shooting maybe through some glass, but yeah, kind of an interesting effect to that. It gives it almost sort of adds to that technological feel to things. I'm curious, is that a reflection off some glass maybe? I don't know. I think it adds a pretty interesting element to the whole thing. More shots, although this shot, the colors are beautiful, and I think your shutter setting is where it needs to be. Excuse me. I would love to see it get down just a little bit lower. I feel like you're a little too high up, and the action that I really want to see almost seems like it's happening down here. All of our attention from everybody's head tilt and their vision and stuff like that is pointing downward, but it kind of seems to me like whatever they're interested in is off the page there or down below. So would like to see that. Great shot. Love the look on his face, the expression, the really intent, interest on that honeycomb or bee's nest or whatever that person's holding up. Little boy looks like he's a little bit unsharp. Our focus looks like it's probably perfectly sharp right about in this area. So when we're doing people shots, make sure our eyes are in focus. Same way here, just wow, wonderful, wonderful gesture and expression, but again, just a teeny bit out of focus. And then some beautiful colors again. Again, we've got that I don't know what it is. Is it a reflection in a window? Is it an overlay? Whatever the case is, again, pretty fascinating. And last but not least, just kind of a fun, awesome, kid shot that the kid's just being a kid. So, and see how the eyes are sharp in this image, and I think that when the eyes are sharp, we're just really drawn into those eyes. So that works. So anyhow, Vicki, I think this is a really good project. I'm really glad you chose to do the Somali Bantu project. It for you guys in terms of service learning, I don't want to knock the 10 Lives Club and doing the CAT stuff, but I think the whole idea of service learning is really to be able to empathize and understand other people in this world's plight, and in doing so, we kind of come to the discernment that these people in many ways are just like us, but in some way, shape, or form they've experienced some misfortune in their lives, and might need our help. And I think that's truly what service learning is all about. So Vicki, I'm really glad you got the opportunity to do this and work with some people, and the images certainly are super compelling. Maybe just a couple little technical things I'd like to see you straighten out here. But other than that, super job, and definitely look forward to seeing the rest of your work this semester. And next we have Ryan's work. So Ryan's artist statement here kind of takes on each individual image and talks about that. So with an artist statement, I'm not looking for a very literal description of each image. So for example, here you're talking about the next picture is of the charter school sign in front of the school. So I think that's pretty obvious. You don't need to tell us that it's a picture of the sign. By looking at the image, hopefully we're able to figure that part out. I think what I would have liked you to do here, and especially given that we, you weren't able to go in and take images inside because there were some issues with being able to photograph the children, which I totally understand. But perhaps just a general one paragraph reflection about your experience with the kids in the school and what it was like, and how these images, while not of the children, somehow serve as some sort of metaphor or some sort of way of helping us understand what that experience was like for you. So try not to be just so literal and direct in your descriptions. Again, I keep mentioning it, but I think I'd love to see this laid out in a little bit more of a poetic manner. So I'll just leave that up there for a second if you guys want to go ahead and pause that and read it. And then again, starting out, we've got an image of the sign, taken in really nice blue sky situation. Um, I love the fact that we've got, a lot of sky here. You've put the sign in that rule of thirds area, which is really interesting. Gosh, I'm not super crazy about this light pole right here. Um, one quick thing with stuff like this, it's usually an easy retouch. We just make a selection on it and then go edit, fill. And when we go to the fill, the pull down menu, we want to make sure it says content aware. Hit OK. And voila, our light post is gone. And then just do a deselect. I kind of like that a little bit better. And, quite honestly, I'm thinking that I'm not a big fan of that one either. So we'll just get rid of that. And I think that perhaps for me is just a little bit more interesting photograph. And we've kind of got that negative space of the sky there to kind of bounce off of the sign there, the busyness and the type of the sign. I'm just gonna go on order here. Really, really busy image, and I love the composition of it, the way you have it set up, sort of something out of focus in the background. And while it's not a very, real and tangible line, this is what I like to call um, a, a psychic line. And in other words, we are sort of like almost imagining a line that takes our eye in through the frame here to the sign. The one thing that's kind of challenging here, though, in this image is our eye does go to the sign, but that tree in front of it kind of blocks it. And so I don't know if there's a different angle to get in there or move over to the left just a little bit, but maybe just getting a little bit more of the sign in there without the interruption of the tree, or perhaps even going to the other side of it where it doesn't look like that there's a tree over there. I like this image a lot. Sort of the starkness and the simplicity of it really speaks to me. And especially, schools oftentimes have an architectural style that is very minimal. And so this, I think is just very characteristic of school construction styles, and just says something about how resources are generally spent more on what goes on inside of the building than on what happens outside of the building. So really nice job with that image, Ryan. And pretty cool shot. I love the way you've sort of arranged this so that car is kind of framed by the caution tape. And it does kind of give us a little bit of a feeling of a crime scene. And certainly, as you mentioned in your description of the photograph, it's not really a crime scene at all, and certainly not indicative of what's going on inside of the school. So from that perspective, I get it that it's just kind of a neat, fun shot, very graphically appealing, and the colors in there, especially the yellows and oranges, really jump out against those more neutral colors of the building. Again, another neat shot, I think, similar to that other exterior image. We've got beautiful lines that are simple, clean, and the thing I like best about this is all these lines lead to this door, and then that door's got that beautiful sort of warm light in there that almost says something about, the exterior might not be that exciting, but what's going on inside is really warm and fuzzy, and there's a human element in there that's really compelling. And then a neat shot of one of the workers there. Again, I know you're probably confronted with not being able to take many pictures of the participants, So I'm glad that you brought this woman outside and got a great shot of her. And gosh, what a wonderful portrait. Beautiful portrait, great smile. Love the lighting in there. And even the backlighting that's kind of rim lighting her hair. And certainly we've got the sign in the background that juxtaposes against her and sort of interplays. So really beautiful portrait. Great job on that. Sorry, there's our same exterior shot. More exterior shots. I think probably this one is maybe not as clean and simple as the other ones. Maybe it's just because the foreground's kind of out of focus. But I get the idea of what you're doing. The eye is sort of being drawn in, and then we see sort of that warm light going on over there. And then someone either getting in or out of the car. And last but not least, the sign from the other side. And I really like the shadowing on the top of the sign here. I'm almost apt to even jump in a little bit closer, something like that, and focusing in on the sign plus the reflections of the tree in it. I think when we include the red here, our eye starts going to the red type, and when we have red type, we want to read that, and unfortunately we can't read it all here, so it becomes a little bit of a problem for us. So, okay, that will do it for your images, Ryan. Again, nice job. I know you were challenged a little bit by not being able to shoot the students inside, but I think some of your shots on the outside were really compelling, and especially love that portrait of the one teacher or the Just for Kids worker. So good job with that. If there's any areas of refinement, I would just say kind of watch out on having images that are either too busy or have stuff sort of included in the frame that isn't really important. So, simple, clean is always the way to go, unless there's really an overwhelming reason to go with a really, really busy shot. So just keep that in mind and keep up the good work, and we'll see you in the final. And our next photographer's work up here is Jessica's, and she was working with the Westside Community Center, I believe. So here is her artist statement. Again, really like this artist statement. I'll just read it out loud. Interpersonal relationships are some of the most important bonds we form throughout life. The people we choose to keep in our life and start friendships with become some of the most influential, important people to us. They are also the people that tend to be our rock when things get tough. Friendships create a power that provides strength and motivation in our hardships, and love and support in our day-to-day lives. So I really think this is beautiful and elegant, and it's not literally describing the photographs, it's describing sort of the motivation for the photographs and what Jessica kind of figured out or found out by spending this time working with and observing these kids. So really love that artist statement. Great job with that, Jessica. And then we get into our images. Wow, beautiful shot. Love the eyes that are in focus. Love the camera angle that you're shooting from. And I especially like the background that's out of focus. Just a really, really wonderful portrait. Again, another really beautiful portrait. I especially love all these lines in the background, and the little girl really sort of jumps off the page because she breaks up that pattern of lines on the gym floor there. So another really nice portrait. If you look at our histogram on this image, our histogram's pushed a little bit to the left, which oftentimes means our image is a little bit underexposed. So I might just go into our levels adjustment and maybe do something like that. Just a slight minor tweak on that image. And some fun interaction images in the hallway. You know, I love when we can get images where it doesn't seem like the photographer is present there. It's almost like it's kind of a you know, a quiet moment, or a moment where there's not a realization that they're being observed here. So that's great. And I love how sort of not only do we have these groups that are pretty much into what they're doing and not aware of the photographer, but I also love that there's two boys and two girls, and just sort of we almost begin to compare the differences between boys and girls and how they interact, even from like their body posture and positions to even expressions on their face, and sort of the connection that they're making between each other. Again, really nice shot. Again, more beautiful portraits. Really love your portraits. Uh, you know, again, if anything, same way on this one, just a little bit. If you see right here, we want our histogram to go all the way to the end there. And I think if we do that, we can see how our tones in our photograph kind of start to get a little punchier there. And same way, you know, you do a really great job of sort of observing these kids without you know, making your presence super well known in the image. I love the black and white conversion. I think this is fantastic. I would consider maybe cropping this door out. I think maybe this as a square shot just might work a little bit better. Whoops. I guess that was that one. Again, great expression. And interesting, you went with the square frame here. Love it. I mean, your black and white conversions are just really beautiful. But see the difference between that image and this image? This image looks a little bit sort of hung up in the grays. It doesn't have that sort of contrasty punch that the other one has. One other way that we could kind of get that punch going in this image is maybe doing something like that. You know, and that, so there's, if you see before, it's kind of everything sort of hung up in the grays, and this kind of peels those tones apart just a little bit. And same way on this one. I think, again, you're kind of hung up in middle grays, although, you know, love the expressions and the just, you know, the girls having just fun in this image here. So maybe something like that works. So before, after. So Jessica, great job on this fantastic project. Really liked your work here. Uh, love the people shots. Technically, I think everything was really sound. You know, maybe on the aesthetic end of your black and white conversions, you had a few that were kind of hung up in the middle grays. But black and white conversions can be kind of tricky here, and we haven't spent a lot of time on that this semester, so I'm not going to get too hung up on that. But great work, and it looks like you did an awesome job with these kids, and really look forward to seeing what you have for our final project. Thanks. And next up we have Josh's work. So Josh's artist statement here, again, he kind of goes through one image at a time, although I really like what you say about things here. And perhaps just what I'd love to see is you combining this all together into one paragraph rather than sort of focusing in on one individual thing. Um, you know, I like the idea where we talk about we are individuals, we can create life. You know, food brings joy to individuals of all ages, but you know, we also don't need you to tell us that it's a picture of a tray. We should sort of, by looking at that, understand that. So again, there's needs to be a fine balance between, you know, talking about the image and sort of connecting the viewer to it and why you made it, but we don't want to just literally describe by saying, you know, this is a food tray or this is whatever. So for all of you guys, just keep that in mind as you're writing your final artist statements. So off to the pictures and super creative image, you know, shooting in between the trays uh, at the food warming stations. I love, you know, love just how all the visual energy points towards the inside of the image, and of course we've got the red flames in the middle that sort of are the complete opposite color from the cold blues that we have in the rest of the image. So that, I think, the juxtaposition of the warms and the colds really draws the viewer's attention into the photograph. Just like Jessica's image here, Josh, if we look at your histogram, histogram's pushed way, way, way to the left, which tells us that that image is a little bit too dark. So our solution here is we go in and you know, just make the adjustments by moving that histogram around a little bit. This is something you can do in Camera Raw, and in Camera Raw, you know, this definitely is something that you can manage pretty easily. You know, love this shot. Obviously, some of the clothes maybe that have been donated, and having the variety of colors. And what I really love here is my eye goes right to these polka dots, and you know, that's the area of the photograph that's in sharp focus. So for me, that works really well. Again, similarly, we've got sort of this psychic line that puts our eye towards this part of the frame, and then when we get in there, we see these two bins with the different designations for who the clothing is for. That is in sharp focus. So really, really well composed photograph. You know, you're using your space and your lines and your positioning of subject matter in a way that our eye goes to and sort of lands on and stays in the photograph. So I like that a lot. You know, something about this, just love that Go Fish hat there. You know, again, just we're seeing it a lot, is the image tends to be a little bit hung up in our middle tones. So, you know, something like that, we can begin to see the staff members' faces a little bit better in there. And I really do love how this hat is kind of on a little bit crooked, and especially how we've got the logo on the t-shirt. And then we've got the old Home Depot bucket that says "Let's do this," but you know, it kind of serves as a metaphor here for, you know, let's do this charitable work that's going on. So again, I think the sort of double meaning of that is pretty neat. And then a shot through all of the food. Again, you are working with shallow depth of field, and that shallow depth of field takes our eye right up to the employees, and then the fish fry that's actually being served. And then last but not least, we get to see the people that are getting to enjoy that fish fry. So, you know, again, like all of your other images, I think one of your strengths really is that you're able to compose images in a way that the viewer's eye ends up going through the frame and landing on the most interesting thing. So certainly in this frame, our eye goes all the way through and ends up landing on this woman who's got just this great look of joy on her face, like she just can't wait to get into that fish fry there. So good job on these for the most part. A little bit, again, a little bit of issue with your black and white conversions being a little bit on the dark side, But other than that, a very solid project here, and looking forward to seeing what you have for us for the final project. Okay, next up we have Siobhan's work, and she did another 10 Lives Club service learning experience. In her artist statement, the one thing that really stood out to me was this little phrase right here. One of the cats was old and was depressed. So my companionship with the cat led him to be very cuddly towards me and inspired him to eat a bit when my supervisor came. When my supervisor said that this cat hasn't been eating at all. So in my photos, I want to capture the beauty of the cats and the raw emotion in their eyes despite their current circumstances. So I like, again, the notion here of this personal reflection going on and talking about, something in that experience that touched you. So I, encourage you guys as you're moving forward here with your artist statements to continue to not describe the photos, but try and connect with your experiences of taking the photos. Because we all can see the photos. You don't have to describe those for us. What we can't see is kind of what was going through your mind when you were taking these. So that's going to be really important here to do. So let's look at the images. So again, cat sort of upside down in a really playful position, body positioning. And again, one of the things as I look through your work here, Siobhan, you did it a little differently than some of the other people. Especially a shot like this really resonates with me because it gives me kind of not only a sense of the place and what it's like, but I also think that there's sort of an artistic or aesthetic appeal to this that is based in like form, geometry, pattern, and stuff like that. So, while some of the other people really focused in on the cats and the cat's eyes, I think your images took a little bit of a different approach to not only showing the cats but this place, and one that's pretty compelling for me, especially quite honestly after seeing a lot of just beautiful faces of cats. Kind of wanted to see a little bit of different stuff. So I think you definitely didn't disappoint on that end, and especially I think sort of the notion of the playfulness of the cats and how much fun you had with them kind of comes out in these images. The juxtaposition of the reflection or the mirror and the cat itself, again, pretty interesting and fascinating, and as much the image is as much about a cat as it is about sort of the play on photography that we can have, and sort of these optical illusions that we can do with it. So that's pretty cool. Again, using color here. This is something I think I remember one person had a cat on sort of a red cloth, but nothing like this again. And you can just see how that cat sort of jumps off of the page here. And I almost feel like this could be, some sort of commercial advertisement as much as anything. And then maybe more of the little bit traditional type of shot that we've seen in quite a few other people's stuff. Again, for me, I think your stuff has a little bit of a different style to it, and that style maybe is a little bit humorous, a little bit playful, but all in all very different, and I like that. Definitely not cliched. And then what a great image to either start or end your portfolio with. Focusing in on that type and then just having the cat in the lower right hand corner. So really neat stuff here, Siobhan. uh, appreciate sort of the different approach that you have towards this assignment, and something that, quite frankly, a lot of people in the class chose to shoot. And I think yours really resonates as being a little bit different and interesting and unique. So great job with this, and big pat on the back, and we'll see you in the final. Take care.